La Lanterna, a spotlight in Italian football, is a podcast that dives into the beautiful game seen from the eyes of two fans from the oldest team in Italy's point of view. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, Canadian and Genovese, together with my friend Matt Killen, an American-born and Genoa fan. Every week, we'll tell you all you need to know about the only team you need to know about, Genoa CFC. Plus, we'll have guests and provide updates from around the magical world of Italian football. Hello, everyone, and welcome to La Lanterna podcast. Hello from your hosts, Fabrizio, and our best and amazing Matt from New York. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Ciao, Fabry. How's it going? Good to talk to you.
I know. Is it good though?
Well,
should we start diving
maybe
into
it's
that already?
not. Yeah, it's kind of like
I mean, it's good to talk to you. Like, don't get me wrong.
well, it's like when people say, oh, can't be worse. And then, the response is actually, well, probably can.
Like, it's funny, like we had some chat going on, you and I, during the match and at the end of the match. And as I told you, I'm going to repeat it here too. I'm so glad that we didn't record the match. Definitely not live. Definitely not after the match. And I needed these. So we played on Saturday, right? So I needed these days off to cool down a little.
Well, they only played on Monday. It was just on Monday.
Sorry, yeah, you're right. My bad. It's like been so bad. It's like I feel like it's so much longer because I want to put it way behind me. But the truth is, it was like 2 days ago. Oh,
it
man,
does feel like it was a while ago, and it's also like, obviously, like you still feel like the same stuff about it too, because it just was not. It was not what we were expecting to see.
So I guess, okay, let's first start to say Genoa lost. Second loss at Reggio Calabria in the home turf of Reggina.
Yep.
They were not necessarily in a good form because they dropped some points throughout, but definitely
leading up to it. Yeah.
They were totally into it because I was listening and reading to the numbers on their side, and the showings at the stadium was quite higher than expected, I guess. But yeah, so it was definitely built up quite well on their side. So it ended.
There's that big kind of I don't know what they call their section, like the curva suit or whatever it was. They had a lot of people packed in and big choreography before the match and everything. So it seemed like it was a big to do there. And like we were kind of talking in the last episode with Dan, like I'm not sure how many fans actually made it from Genoa down there to watch.
Yeah, they didn't publish the numbers, which kind of like, I didn't like that, but by the looks of it, mind you, it was Monday evening,
all the way on the other side of the country,
over 1,000 kilometers away, and so on.
Right.
So it was not expected to have the same numbers of Cosenza, et cetera, right? But by the numbers, it looked like at least a couple hundred, anyways.
Yeah, of course, we definitely had a way showing there. Yeah, so they were up for it. From the fans and maybe also from the team. I mean, when I saw the 11, I kind of told you, like, hey, I think this is one of our better combinations. We knew we had to make a decision in the fullback position, and so you had Chivora starting in place of Pajac now, who's been injured, and it was kind of an interesting thing because, like, there was a little bit of a question. I think we talked about this last week too. Are we going to have Sabelli play on the left and Hefty play on the right? And the decision was, actually, we're going to have Sabelli play on the right. Maybe that's more his natural position. And we're going to start Sabora on the left, which is more his natural position. And, between you and I, of course, I think we probably both would think Hefty is maybe preferred if you're making that decision versus Sabora. But I didn't think that was too controversial to have Sabelli there, only because he's done well And I think it's better to have him in a place where he can be, his natural power position.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I haven't seen much danger happening down on the right side. I think the weaker spot was on the left side.
Yeah. Well, it hurt us during the game. I mean, my initial kind of thinking was, okay, well, Sabelli's looked decent. I mean, we can talk about it a little bit more anyway. But so we had Sabelli on the right, we had Sabora on the left. I think obviously our usual pair and center backs. And then going forward, it was what seemed to be like a really strong kind of combination for us. You've got, I mean, I guess this isn't exactly going forward, but you've got Frendrup and Strootman in defensive midfield. Then you've got Goodmanson, Aramu, Giello as the attacking kind of midfield players, and then Coda as the forward. And it seemed like, look, this is about as good as we can put an 11 out right now with the players we have. I mean, did you have a similar reaction, or was it mainly concern also that we kind of have maybe a little bit of weakness on the left-hand side with the injury still to Payac? And
that was my only concern. Like everything else, like 10, 11s were fine. No question about it. I'm not the one to comment on the 4-2-3-1. That's a model that Blessin adopted now for a while. I'm not a fan of it. You know that since probably the beginning that we started our podcast, but with the good elements, it can work because you can have that forward midfield, as you referred to it, as being quite strong. Like it can happen, and that's why during the game you can see that it can change even to a 4-2-4 sometimes, depending, right?
Right. Yeah, and like you've got some changeability within it, and then maybe it gives us more comfort or flexibility for Strootman to go farther up. I don't know exactly. And then of course we had Semper starting as the keeper.
That was the other surprise too,
which is a little bit surprising. I mean, it wasn't shocking. It wasn't like, oh man, this is a terrible decision. But it's strange to see us kind of making this mid-season kind of flip away from Martinez. I don't know why.
I don't know. In the interview, Blessin had mentioned the fact that the shirt is up for grabs, which indicated the fact that, okay, there are no hierarchies anymore, so it becomes a question mark. So why did you start Martinez all the way through?
I absolutely hate that.
And it's quite known out there that if you put pressure and too much competition between the two goalies, it's never a good thing. I'm not an expert again on this one, but if I'm hearing what I'm hearing from who is more expert, that's not a good thing if that is happening, because I'm not sure that that's what's happening. It could be that Martinez is still not on the top of his shape after that semi-injury that he had on his left shoulder. Now, having said that, Genuani Siresta has their weekly, which is our sister company, sister group,
same podcast group.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They have a weekly voting amongst the Genuani Siresta kind of group and whatnot, and they voted him for 61%, as whatever that percentage means. I'm never sure what that means, but to be the best player.
Well, there weren't many choices.
About that, and I have to say up front like this, and I'm going to say I disagree 100%. What do you think?
Well, look, he saved a penalty, so
that does not make you the best player. Mind you, it was a great thing. He didn't say the second one.
I don't disagree. I mean, look, I kind of thought we were woeful at Reggina. I did not think we really played very well in any way. And we were talking about this too. Like when you look from any of our starting 11, even the players that we brought on as substitutes, like there wasn't really a player you could single out and say, well, at least we had a strong performance here. It just didn't seem like we had it. And I generally think, unless it's kind of one of those matches where like you're really, really playing at a level where maybe the team should not be playing, or there's just some fantastic sort of work that's happening. Like having a keeper, and it pains me to say this because I play keeper like relatively often, like having keeper as your man of the match is usually not a great thing, because it meant that everything else wasn't maybe working as expected. And the keeper either saved your ass or nobody else was playing very well. And I think in our case, it seemed possibly like he was going to save our ass before the second goal goes in. But at the end of the day, like I agree with you. There's some soft things that happened on his side. We did get a penalty save. He was in a bad position because he had to save another one later on. So it's not like this was something that when you have to face two penalties in a game, you're going to concede a goal. It's going to happen.
Statistics, right?
But I didn't find him to be particularly impressive either.
So I'm sorry, I'm not getting the message. Are you saying that you're agreeing that he was the best player, or that he wasn't?
Well, who else are we going to say was the best player? I think asking the best player is a ridiculous thing to say after a game like this, because there isn't a best player. Every player on the pitch was not up to par. And like, if you have to pick one, like sure, the water boy did an excellent job. You know, he filled his role, but like nobody really played up to the way. Like Strootman was probably the least effective in the games we've seen recently. I think if you could vote for a person, maybe a Ramu, but like Ramu had again like one of those sort of really frustrating games where obviously he got the goal, but then he's got a couple completely just mishit passes in some cases when he's in a really important position. I didn't think Goodmanson was as involved either as I would have liked to see. I don't really remember seeing Jagello doing anything of interest, but maybe I missed that.
Even Frendrup.
And Frendrup as well. It's just like
it was a bad. So I actually spoke to Dan, our guest from last week, and I actually just he was saying the only points that he said were the fact that I don't understand what was the big deal about the big fuss about the players getting so angry at the end, which meant that they added more minutes and whatnot. And in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, but I mean, you have to think about the fact that you're losing. You did a crappy job, and so it's only normal. You're trying to get even more minutes because you're going to get. But to your point is, let me talk quickly about statistics to get to the point that I'm trying to get at. Is 5 shots on target by Reggina, 1 shot on target by Genoa, which is the goal.
Yep.
Then 1 shot off target by Reggina and 2 by Genoa. These stats, so 1 on target and 2 off, you're not going to win the games. So if before we were not scoring, because we have this issue with not scoring, we have this issue here, and you were still getting chances there, you were still getting shots on goal, you were still getting shots in general, you were winning by 1 goal, because I can't remember probably only 1 match against maybe Modena that we won 2-0. We're only winning by always 1 goal differential.
I know.
So, and now after all this, besides that, they sucked. I'm going to say it honestly, they sucked. And that's why we lost. We did not deserve to win. No question about that. Did we deserve to tie? To be honest, no, because Reggina had the heart on that match. Whether I'm not sympathizer Reggina, perhaps, whether I'm unhappy that we lost to them, they reached us in the standings, and they're officially quote unquote second because of the match against the direct matches. I don't know. They deserved it. Period.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're exactly right. Like when you look, we didn't deserve to get anything out of the game. It would have been nice to at least kind of walk away with our tail between our legs and still have a point out of it. But we didn't really deserve that. And I mean, for me, this was easily the most disappointing match of the season.
It is.
The Palermo match was kind of a strange one earlier in the season. It was a little bit of it's not like a hostile place to play, but things could happen
We
away at
there
Palermo.
we exactly that was bad luck, and we didn't deserve to lose. But yeah, I was still happy after that. I'm not happy, but you know what I mean. Like I wasn't disappointed.
It wasn't a good outcome, but it didn't feel like this. And I think like this is the type of match when you could, and I don't know if you were thinking this, I'm sure you were, when we're watching the match, it's just like as time goes on, you know, every minute, and we're not seeing Genoa be effective, you really start wondering like when is the pressure going to come on this team, and in particular, like when's it going to come on Blessing, because it's starting to kind of seem like I know, you know, we've been on the positive side ish with him from the beginning, but like I don't know. I mean, right now, you're right. You're going into the season. We bring on the best goal scorer in the entire league, and you put the mantle out when you do that. You take the best probably attacking player from another rival that just got relegated down to Serie B. We sign a couple other really key players, and in response to all of this, it seems like we have a really hard time creating chances. I mean, it's not like we've not had an interesting style of play or we're being really defensive or something. There have been a couple of games where we've been unlucky, where we have had a lot of chances and we've not scored. And there have been those moments where kind of like in games like that, when you're watching a game like that, you feel, hey, this will come if we just keep doing it this way. But there have been a number that have kind of been like this match as well. I think the only other match we maybe won by more than 2 goals was against Cosenza, which was kind of a crazy match. But it just feels like we should be getting more, and either like we're just not lining up correctly, or you know, I'm kind of also in this camp. I'm not sure our team is as good as we think it is. I honestly believe that a little bit.
We can talk forever about this. So let's put it this way. So I had a conversation with a certain with a person that we're going to have as a guest hopefully soon. He's an adopted Genoa fan like yourself, like other some other guests that we had as well. So he's in England. His name is Zach. So he's going to have he promised that he's going to be on our pod anyways. But nevertheless, so I quickly spoke to him, and he basically said something quite interesting. He said that we're becoming predictable.
Yeah.
Predictable and slow, to the point that the teams are going to start to figure out. I'm not going to try to steal words from him that he might use them, and hopefully this is not going to happen when he comes anymore. Like the things have changed, turned around. But essentially, he said it becomes so predictable to the point that teams might even come into the fact of learning and, you know, learning the trick, how to defeat us, essentially, right?
Well, you can understand where he was coming from. I mean, I know, going back to what you were saying earlier about the 4-2-3-1, like maybe that doesn't really work as well. And I think also like you consider like the bright moments we've had this season and the times that we've had. Oh man, what a great goal. We can't expect to win by scoring like 30-yard screamers by Strootman every match, and that's going to be what carries us on to win the game. Like we need to really have, obviously we need to have Coda involved, and I think I generally would argue that he has been more than maybe the stats show.
We said that throughout, Matt. Like, and I don't want to take that away. Not only the guy has won the best, I think it was from the league, the best player for October. So
right.
That tells you a lot. And
yes.
he won, not
yes.
even like being the goal scorer. Right. So as you just mentioned, essentially, in other words, what you're saying is he has contributed to the game way more and beyond only just scoring, which is when I said to you, if you remember a podcast or two ago, when I was saying, I don't want to like stretch it, but it reminds me of, not same quality, whatnot, of Cristiano Ronaldo, in a sense, like he's not only your goal scorer, but he's actually your guy, your playmaker. He's your like he goes and gets the ball, he creates it. He's also like an assist man, and take away all that quality and whatnot. I still see that in Coda. Now, the question is Coda not scoring because of something else? Not because of Coda. We knew he's like a slow starter, and I get that. He woke up a couple of matches ago. Now, again, he's still made there. And then people are starting to say, well, blah, blah, blah. It's Blessing putting him wrong in the field. He's still doing the same that he was doing in the different leagues, in the different teams. But other statistics are showing us that we're not scoring outside of the box. Well, we are maybe one or two, but there's not many shots from outside the box. Number one. Number two, there's not even one goal to date, and we don't have many. But there's still no score to date done from a free kick,
which is remarkable.
Have
we had one from a corner? Is that included in the same? I don't know.
That would not be considered the same.
Yeah, I mean, then that was also like one of the things when you have Fabry that you think that that's going to be, what he does and how we're going to be able to get goals.
He is waking up slowly. He is waking up.
Yeah,
it's not enough as we wanted him to be.
I mean, I guess I get to your point about the formation and to our friend in the UK's point on being predictable. Like I do kind of think that like we don't seem to be as effective combination wise. Zach, thank you, Zach in the UK. Like I'm not sure we've found exactly how our team can play well together. And this is why I'm kind of also thinking like, are we kind of composed in a way that actually isn't that effective? Because I think when you look at all of the players that we have available to us, and this is kind of why also when I saw the 11, like this is maybe our best way we can go forward. We had, of course, some unfortunate news that happened, I think, before the recording of the pod, or after the reporting of the pod, before the game started on Monday, with Ekuban having a really major surgery. When you look at the other players that we have that are attacking players within the squad, who were not in the starting 11, you've got Puskás. You have Yeboah, who's not done anything really besides scoring a goal in the first match. Important goal, but like has not really been that involved. Portanova has really not been involved in it. I don't know if we really call him as much of a quote unquote attacking player. I still think it's kind of strange that he's not been as involved. Maybe his time is more or less run its course here. I don't know. Who else is there?
Well, Portanova has been
Elchin
ousted based on hierarchies now between Strootman and Frendrup. Basically took away.
Well, but weren't we playing him like what was it? What was that same Venezia game where he scored that great goal, right? It was it was a great pass from Badal that freed him up. And he was in more of an attacking position in that game. He was playing a little bit more advanced, I think. He wasn't playing.
No, it's true. It could have been, well, even then again there, like right now, if I recall well, did you say against who? Venezia?
I think it was Venezia. I think so.
So that was still in August. We did not at that point,
it was the first
correct me if I'm wrong, right? We still did not have maybe Yaltsin, but it was still too early.
Did not have Aramo.
Have Puskás. We did not have like a whole bunch there. And so maybe he was just one of the only few choices that we had at that point. Now, having said that, I did see him being way more or less involved in the game, but also the few times that he was called up. And if you are a professional player, young or not, you have to show the best because it's your opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. And in the last showings, has been showing, again, I'm using this word today because I'm very angry, but crap.
We've not seen much from him, but that's my point though. It's like when you look at this, when you look at the guys even who were not in that first 11, and it's like I don't see a single player in there. Puskás is the only guy, but I also think Puskás at this point, his impact is an imagination. I don't really believe that the times that he's come out there, Like if you like Puskas and you like what you're seeing, you're watching Serie B highlights from a previous season. Maybe you're watching him play at Reading. Like you're not watching him play at Genoa. He's had a couple of instances where he's kind of looked okay. You know what? Guvan Yalchin has also looked kind of okay in a couple of instances. He's not really been that great. So you go top to bottom with all these guys that we have. Yeboah is basically, I don't even know if we can sell the guy. We don't have Ekuban anymore. Puskas is a hope that hopefully one day will work out, but like has not really clicked, and is odd that he's not, because he knows this league very well. Yalchin is new to the league, but has not clicked. Portanova.
He's not. Yeltsin actually was.
Did he play
has played
last
before?
year?
Yes. No,
Okay,
maybe not
that's
last
right.
year, but
I forgot
years
that.
ago,
I was thinking most recently from him coming from Turkey, but you're right. Yeah, he did play in Serie B before. But point being, we've got all these guys on there, and it's just like, there's this big to do about, we've signed Ilsanker, and we've signed Strootman, and we've signed Koda, and obviously we're coming from Serie A. We had a shitty team in Serie A last year. There was a lot of angst about how we rebuilt the squad or did not. The players that we brought back. I think Jagiello is a guy, obviously, who was loaned out last season and played in Serie B, had a good season. I think he's a capable player. I agree with you that Aramu can come good long term. Koda is definitely our best player. Gudmundsson maybe is not that far behind, and then you've got Frendrup and Strootman. But I just think when you look at those players that are responsible for really a lot of the creative and the finishing play that we have in the team, first of all, the quality doesn't seem that great, but also I really don't know how these players are meant to play with one another. I mean, do we have any proper like left midfielder or right midfielder, or either left wing, right wing players at all in the pitch? I mean, I suppose like you could play like Gudmundsson in that way. We saw him in a 4-3-3 before. Similar when we had Yeboah and Ekuban deployed kind of together, but like we don't really have those players. They're all kind of these strange, like I mean, maybe we would get more from Aramu that way too. I don't know, but I kind of feel like he's more of like a proper number 10.
That's a good question that you put there, because in the different chats and the different commentaries and the different posts and social media and whatnot, people are starting to say, people are pointing fingers. So I'm going to mention a few things, and this is one of them, in which they are starting to point the finger to Spurs and company, to say that they missed a few spots in the transfer market. Now, before saying that, I don't know if that is true. I do agree that the replacement for Payet was a little bit. But I mean, yeah, we do have Sabora. Like he should have been this talented guy and so on. And then once again, when he has to step up to the plate, like even last match, he showed some.
Yeah, he's
limits,
had some. I'm not as. Yeah.
But the more you play, and the more you're going to gain too, right? But his full limitations now are the ones that I remember from Serie A.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's limited as a player, but I think like
great guy, like him, support him, but
sure. Right. Yeah. I mean, look, he's not whatever. He tries, he's industrious when he's on the pitch. He can be a liability to some extent. I don't think you lose a match necessarily. I mean, possibly, maybe we lost this match because of this, but I really feel like, have a team like this. We should be putting more forward.
Okay. Besides that goal from Dinghy, which in Italian is Canotto, which is that little boat, right? Anyways, besides that goal from Canotto, which is you and I actually wrote to each other and saying Dinghy. That's what that means in Italian. It was Bani's mistake, essentially.
That was terrible.
A little bit, maybe Semper, based on the fact that he could have probably seen it better. Maybe he was covered. I don't know. Maybe, right?
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, even to you, like I'm going to give like a 20-30% fault to the goalie, but 70-80% to Bani, because he was the one that was marking him, right?
Yep.
So take away that goal there. So it's a semi mistake from Bani, a little bit sleeping on it, right? The first penalty.
Didn't it kind of feel soft again?
Okay, so I spoke about it with Dan, and I said to him, while the dive, quote unquote dive, so people can't see me, but I'm using the quotes right here. While the dive was obvious, if there is a contact, it's a contact, right? There was contact, no question about it. So he did touch the shirt. While it was like maybe or the arm, like while he maybe just brushed him, you just don't do that. You're in the box, you just don't do that.
I completely disagree with that. I think that like when you're playing a sport, there will be physical contact. And if a player is embellishing the contact.
Oh, wait, you're from behind. You're in the box. It's the goal scoring chance. You just have to be in front of him and you don't touch him. Anyways.
Yeah.
Interpretation. You know, I can, like, from a Genoano standpoint, I'm like, oh, come on, that guy dove, he didn't even touch him. The truth is, there was contact. It was not a strong contact, but because of that contact,
you put yourself in a position where a referee could call it.
Right. So actually, the reason why it took also a while for the penalty to be called, because it went to VAR and it took forever, was actually it was not for the fact of the contact, because that was clear from the VAR's perspective. It was actually if it was expellable with a red card.
Yeah, I know. There was a pretty significant dialogue on that side on whether or not there should be a red. And, you know, that would have been a ridiculous decision, I think, to award a red card for that. There was not. I mean, these things are always so difficult in replay also to really try to break down and understand, because you've got a guy and there is contact and it always looks like the player is being brought down, but there's so much you can do to make this also happen and look a certain way. So, you know, it goes against us.
The miracle was that Semper then at the end saves it, so it's not a goal. And at that point, I think we were already at the 1-1.
Yeah,
because we just scored it was a nice goal from Aramo. It was just like a few minutes after the first goal by Dingy.
Yeah, it was a big.
Sorry, Canotto. Anyway, then the second half, just at the beginning, if I'm not mistaken, what happens? Action in the box, and Sibora again. Like nowadays, you see all the defenders. What do? As soon as there's something like that, they immediately cross their hands behind their back in order to be, hey, listen, my hands were tied. You can't give me penalty. The guy was like flying or something.
Yeah, his hands were way out there. I thought there was some frames of that. I mean, again, like the replays are so hard to break it down.
Yeah.
There was one where it actually looked like it hit his chest first, but it was hard when your arm is out like that and it's like basically you're making like a 90-degree angle or something. Like if there's contact again, like they pretty much have to award the penalty. And it was somewhat unlucky, but to your point, like you kind of have to be able to react to that type of thing. These things are always, for me, both of these calls are still like pretty disappointing, because I don't believe either were necessarily within the rule of what the actual game is. We're getting accustomed as fans to saying these are penalties, so then they happen. But I think like an actual foul, like that play, I'm not sure you call that foul an open play for the first penalty if it happens in the middle of the pitch. You could call it if it looks like he's actually dragging him down, but I don't think a player falls like that in the middle of the pitch. So you probably don't call it because it looks like you dove. And in the second,
I told you that too. In doubt, you always give it to the attacking team in that case.
Oh, it's how it goes. But it's just kind of it's unfortunate when I can't gripe about this too much, because at the end of the day, we didn't deserve to win, and it would have been almost a robbery for us to get out of there with a point to begin with. But it's just frustrating to see both of those goals, because in both of those or both those penalties, because in both of those situations, I'm not sure it really is like the letter of the law. It is the letter of the law, but it's not the intention, I think, of the law of what it's meant to be. I don't think Sabora is getting some unfair advantage by how he's trying to defend the ball. He's reacting, and he did a bad job of kind of controlling his limbs and the way.
Now you're being a fan. You're not being a sportsman.
Whatever. I'm just like, this whole thing, I still think it's absolutely ridiculous that we're playing this match at Reggina, at a team that, by the way, has not had the best defensive record out there, and we can get a single shot on target, which was basically a completely wide open move, and we've got nothing else. And I think we have to come back to the comment on Spurs on everything else, because, like, here's my thing. I don't know what other lineup we can put forward. I don't think you can put, like, you want to do 4-2-2-2-2 or maybe a 4-4-2. But I honestly, I don't think we have that. We don't have.
Well, again, to Zach's words, and again, this was Zach from UK. He said with the 4-3-2, sorry, for the 4-2-3-1, we did score in all matches, not a lot, but we did score, except the Cagliari match.
Yeah.
I'm not defending it, because I'm the first one that told you that I'm not a fan of the 4-2-3-1.
I think the formation can work really well, but I think, like, the problem is we don't really have either of what is necessary in this formation. Like, we don't have enough of. Yellow is an interesting player, I guess, and I think Goodmanson and Ramu are too. Yeah. But, like, you kind of want to have, three really tricky, kind of creative players in like this. You're almost playing like three central attacking midfielder type role. You're almost playing like three number 10s.
So I
think we have. I think we have one maybe with Aramu, who doesn't look like a number 10 by the way he delivers the ball. I think we have to be honest about that. Like, he is not playing key passes anywhere on that pitch. He's had like a couple that he's made since he started, and he's had some chances that either he scored like he did in his last match, or he should have scored.
So what you're saying is he's not the infamous, that what we are looking for, the trequartista type of thing, but he looks more like a sort of like a winger.
Yes, right. That's how he's playing with us right now. I think he in concept makes the most sense in that role. I think Goodmanson could be a winger, but honestly, I've seen him deployed so often in this position that I'm starting to think that he's kind of like a less skilled, like, number 10. And then
in theory, we're playing like a 4-2-2, missing a person, and a 1 with a half person up there.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess they are kind of out. They're out wider.
So you're saying we're weaker on the left because we're missing the winger, or is it because Goodmanson comes up, so then we're weaker in the midfield?
I just think that we don't have, like, if we were playing in a 4-3-3, like there's just like that. Not
we don't have the players. I get that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like we're kind of, and you see also, like, there's a really over reliance. It's kind of much more obvious actually with the Payet injury, believe it or not, with all the gripes we've had at GSR. But, like, without a player like Payet, and even to some degree Sabelli, like, there's a really specific way we're playing football right now. Again, this is also Zach's credit. Like, we're getting our fullbacks up and they're whipping balls into the box, and we've had a couple of actually really good moves that have come from that. That if it's not happening from that, and if it's not happening from a really deep pass from, I mean, Badal hasn't really played all that much lately, but Strootman has been making a lot of these plays in recent matches anyway, then we're not really, like, unlocking defenses with our movements otherwise. And it's not like we've had a whole lot of crosses we've converted into goals or anything like that, but, like, you could see a lot of times when we would build the ball up, that's how we would work. We would have the ball, eventually it would be coming from Payet, or it would maybe be coming from Sabelli, and then the ball would come into a dangerous area, and either it'd be like half cleared and then we get a chance, or, maybe it is laid off to somebody else from that cross, and then we get something. And I just don't think, like, there were a couple matches where we had a little bit of like a Yalchin, Ramu, Koda kind of miniature tiny triangle in the box that happened a couple of times. It was kind of nice to see. but it's not really happening otherwise. And perhaps it's the formation, but I just generally I'm starting to think that like the way that our players are, either they're being coached or their actual skill sets aren't really conducive to like what we need them to do.
You actually pointed to two other pointing fingers that I was going to talk about. So the first one, we just talked about it before, and the other two, I'm just going to revert them based on what you just said, was that maybe we are expecting, I'm going to try, how am I going to word this? We're thinking the quality of the players are a certain way while they're not, or at a certain level while they're not, except obviously the 2 or 3 exceptions,
correct,
maybe even more than 2 or 3, but we're giving more credit to what they actually are. Now we can quickly mention a few for sure, and one of them at this point is definitely Aramo, because he's definitely underperforming compared to what we have seen him doing in Venezia. For now, anyways, I'm seeing potential, but other ones, obviously, up at front, like Yeboah, no question about that. Yalcin, 100%. Puskas, 90-80%. Koda, I don't see him to be in this category. Frendrup is a great guy. We raved about him. I'm going to continue to rave about him. This was a very bad match of his, period. I've seen another 1 or 2 bad matches of his, but it can happen. We all have bad days, right? Strutman, he's the quality player in excellence out there. Obviously, he can have, if the team is not showing, it's not that he can do everything, right? Badal, I think, for how much I can say I love him, I don't know. I think he definitely brings great quality, but it's not the olden days of Badal.
Yeah, we're getting the twilight of his career version of Badal instead. And that's just kind of, you go all the way down, and that's the thing that kind of makes you a little bit concerned, because I think Aramu is going to be fine eventually. Like, I don't think he's been bad. It's just that like we would need him probably to play differently, or to be providing a different role than he is, I think, when he's actually playing. And maybe really he's not as much of that guy that's, because I mean, a lot of when we were watching some of the highlights on Venezia, it looked like he was even playing more of a winger role too. And so that's also so
right.
Anyway, so that you were going to make a point on the other side of it of
and the last one, just leave it at the last one, not because it's the one that I care the most, but it's obviously what everybody's been ranting about and so on.
Yeah,
they want Blessing's head, because they're saying he is just the one that is not able to put the game on the table. He's not the one that is fast adaptable during the match to change cards on the table fast enough. He's the one that is putting the wrong players at times. I mean, I can agree on a lot of things, partially though, not fully.
Yeah.
But I don't have the heart to say, so I don't have the heart to say that it's all his fault. Obvious, because when you go on the pitch, okay, fine, you're the one that has to create that model and give the scheme to the players in order to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, who goes on the pitch? You know what I mean? It's the player. So this, I'm going to translate. It was in Italian. This is what I wrote to the GSR, the Giovanni Siresta chat. I said, I only understood now, obviously, except unless anyone else talked about it. Not everybody in the Italian chat was super agreeing with what I wrote, but there was the enthusiasm after the Preziosi era that has suffocated, or better, hidden the anger from the last years, especially after the relegation. Blessing is your typical, we call in Italian, capro espiatorio, like your scapegoat.
Yeah.
This is what I wrote. Blessing is your typical scapegoat, with adding to that the error of choosing Sheva before him, and has given the free entry to the thought, to the thinking that Spurs and company are not totally able to understand what needs to be done in Italy. We are definitely, these last few words, we are definitely used to badly in the last 14 years that at the first problem, the first one to jump, to leave, to be sacked is the coach.
Yep.
And I want to remind you that even Gasperini was sent off 2 times.
Multiple times. Yeah.
2 times. And I just added the fact that I'm not here to speak about the why, but the fact, what I'm trying to get, my point was, people are pointing fingers to Blessin. Is it because he's German? He doesn't speak Italian? Most likely because that's the sentiment I'm getting. Adding to the fact of no experience in Serie A, everybody says, oh, they have to have experience in Serie A. And for the fact of, that all this put together, and the fact that you're used to the fact of, okay, when we're doing bad, then you have to sack someone. Well, let me add something here to say, what about Inzaghi, not Pippo, but Simone Inzaghi? Look at Inter. Should he be sacked? Did he get sacked? No.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, that's
Inter.
Yeah. It's complicated, and I think you're right to say both of these things, because and that's kind of what I was trying to make the point earlier too, because I'm more in the camp that I think that there are more failings on the recruitment side that have happened here. And I also think there's a relative term for this, of course. So we are expecting, with the way that we've made signings and the way that we're coming into this league, that we are really developing and laying the groundwork for being successful in Serie A. I think that's reality. As any Genoa fan, obviously we want to have a good showing in Serie B. We want to win the league. I don't think we're taking the league for granted, but I think when you consider the squad that we had when we came down, the types of players that we signed, and basically the intent that we had made with certain signings, the expectation pretty squarely was we should really be looking like the best team in the league. And that was also what we were hearing from almost all, if not all, of the opposing fans, as we were expecting this is the big game. Genoa is the big team. This is the big squad in this league, and we're all trying to get points from them because of that thing.
But Matt, we are.
And I don't disagree with that.
They're all continuously saying Genoa is the best team in the league. Genoa, but in this gives the bad, the double side of the coin, where it's the team where everyone is going to put their whole entirety heart, and they want to show off, and it's the queen of the league. You're going to do your best, whether you're playing at home or at the Marassi potato field pitch type of thing stadium.
I love it, by the way. I don't know if many people do, but I mean, we're always going to have the target on our back. I think that's so overplayed. Like, yes, I don't disagree that we're the biggest team in Serie B. And I don't mean that in a bragging way. I think it's a fact. That's what it is. I also think that when you look at the composition of this squad, we are very imbalanced in how we've put together these players. And my biggest concern is kind of what you were sort of alluding to a little bit ago. So let's say hypothetically we get Blessin out of there, and I don't know, we bring Ballardini back, whatever. We bring back some guy who's
just an example.
My concern is I don't really know how you improve this squad right now without signing other players in January. And I think like what we have to kind of see and what needs to happen, like I can understand criticism of a Blessin, because like I think what's also maybe veiled a little bit in the angst of, he's not Italian or whatever, is I think there's a kind of a thinking, which I don't know, nobody really knows what's going on here, of who's running the show. Like, is Spores making the calls on the players and Blessin is working with them?
Well, there's also Ottolini. Let's not forget about Ottolini.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you're right. Ottolini is really more making those direct calls, and then Spores is really the overseer of all that stuff. So,
and by the way, Vasco da Gama was promoted to Serie A.
Yes, the Brazilian Serie A, which is, so there's a little bit of something to celebrate. But I think, like, it's kind of, do you have a manager who's really having a vision for where the team is that vision coming from Spores? I think that honestly, it's not something you're going to get right in a couple of windows. And I do think I'm sounding like I'm on both sides of the coin, because I kind of am, because there are two sides of thinking about this. My take on the transfers that happened over the summer were that they were very, very pragmatic for most of those decisions. There were some splashy signings that we made. We're probably paying Strootman a contract that most other teams in Serie B cannot afford. Ditto, Coda, and Ramu. But beyond those three signings specifically, we're bringing back guys off of loan. Ilsanker, I think, was basically off of a free. He's hardly playing, but at least he's like a guy who's got experience. And most of the other players in the squad were players we already had. And a lot of it was really cutting budget that already existed that was there. So most of the offseason work this year was actually cutting deadwood. It wasn't spending big on players and doing this big recruitment thing. And it was intentional. It was kind of like, we are not going to come down into Serie B and have some gigantic budget that we cannot manage, that we might have a hard time with getting sponsors. We might have a hard time with X, Y, and Z other things. We are going to have a competitive team. We are going to field a team that can do good things, but there's not a complete overinvestment. And we had to let some players go as part of that. We had to have some players who, either by their own ambitions or perhaps by the club's willing. And Mimo, I think, also, by the way, is an example of a player I'm sure was impacted in this specific way, where I believe he would have stayed if we had a certain dollar amount associated with that. And I don't mean to say he's a headhunter. I think that's the case. And I think legitimately it was kind of, we don't think it's in our best interest to do this. And so I honestly believe we're seeing that impact directly on the pitch now in what's happened, and where we've made some decisions. We kind of had some haphazard signing stuff happening in last January, which is still in the squad right now. We made some decisions that we thought would help beef out the squad. I think maybe there was an effort to work with how Blessin wants to play, and he does like that formation. And we definitely have enough players for that specific formation. We can run 4-2-3-1 all day long because we've got all the players he wants to put in there. But I think those factors combined are kind of what you're seeing. And in my opinion, is similar to yours. I don't think we throw the baby out with the bathwater right now and completely abandon ship, because I think this is a multi-year project, and what we need to expect at this point, we really are going to have, with Payach's injury in particular, we're going to have to find something to go on the left side of the pitch, because we don't have really any sort of even backup left back that's available to us.
Well, he's out at least 6 months, they said, right?
Yeah, right. So
Kuban, not even going to talk about the poor guy, like the double tendon of Achilles type of operation is just like, I was not expecting that, but that's a different role. But you're right. Yeah. So my point to conclude this whole rambling against everyone essentially, is let's keep our strengths all together. I want to see a major change and reaction from that mollagine, how we say in Italian, is like the slowness and the I was seeing like these Reggina players like crazy in fast and whatnot, and we're like, okay, great passage, great this, but I'm so slow here, okay, there, and like not fast, right? So I want to see a reaction on that. And let's hope that in January, which is still a few match days away, because we are not going to be having a break like Serie A during the World Cup. Actually, we're going to have a break up after the Como game, if I'm not mistaken. But that's just 1 week. And and let's just hope that January maybe they dip into the hands into the pockets and pull some other good players to come and replace wherever we're lacking and missing some quality, essentially.
Yeah, I think we need to hope for that, and it's not like, we should be licking our wounds and just hoping to get through it, but it kind of is a little bit right now.
Well, you have to lick your own wounds, understand where you made the mistake, and learn from it.
Right.
Instead of pointing the fingers and complain about it.
Right. And I think like there's a system that's clearly there. Like, look, whether we like it or not, with the way this ownership structure is being put together, I don't think there's any shot that Spores is removed from power. He just got promoted. This guy is overseeing the
people can wish it because he's German too, or against that for God, whatever reason is, but it's not going to happen.
So he's in there, and these things do take time. It does take
Look at Leipzig.
Rounds.
Leipzig is an example. How long did it take for them to become who they are now?
Well, Leipzig is a controversial one. I actually think Arsenal is a better comparison, which might be confusing. But when you look at what happened in that squad when Mikel Arteta was in charge in his first season, they I think finished 8th that year. They had a nice cup run at the end of it, and he actually had a worse season the following year. Completely didn't qualify for Europe. I can say this also as a guy that follows Arsenal, so I understand some of what's going on there. But there were rounds of players that were brought in different periods of time that some of them were great, some of them really didn't fit. And it wasn't until last season when they finally figured out their approach transfer-wise, and they really got a bunch of players that really, really well complemented the core team members that they had within that squad. And you had also a couple of years of a manager having a chance to get his ideas in and to establish things and to get players out. If you watch the documentary, like players like Aubameyang, who were really unpopular and really powerful, but also maybe had a sway of bringing people away from the team culture or what the manager wanted to do. I'm not sure Blessing is exactly that type of a personality with the experience to kind of keep players at the edge of their seat like that, beyond being a real rah-rah type of a coach. I don't really know him very well. I can't say what he's like. But I think when you're looking at the evolution of a team and how you're going to change a team, and like you mentioned before, we had to deal with a lot of shit in the last 3 or 4 years plus of Serie A that we were watching. And you, unfortunately, we can't wipe away all of that shit in a season, even going down a league. Like, we have a lot of stuff that's still there, that's still within that team. And I do think there also was a lot of haphazardness that happened last January. We have to look at that honestly. There's a bunch of throwing darts against the wall because we're doing anything we possibly could. And these things really only sort themselves out when you start to see an actual real long-term vision. And I think we are all fools if we think that even the stuff that happened this summer is long-term planning by Genoa. That's really specifically, we are not investing long-term right now because we're in Serie B. And we're not going to have, if we invest in Serie B right now, we're going to be in Serie B for a while. We need to be in Serie A, but we don't have the funds to be spending on Serie A players. So we're in a weird limbo right now where we need to kind of rely on the quality that we had, and we bought some shiny players to elevate that, to make sure the number one thing, I think objective-wise, really truthfully, is that we get out of Serie B next season. It's not that we win the league.
That's the main goal.
And obviously we still have we are well positioned to do that in many ways, but we got to make sure that we're strengthening in the right places, especially in January.
We're at match day 12. We are on the paper on the third spot, but essentially we're on the second spot. So, I mean, obviously we want to be in a better spot, but it's obviously not there yet. And I can understand why we're not that happy, especially it was not the loss against Reggina that bothered me. It was the no reaction from the players that really angered me. So, like the losing against Palermo was quite different compared to the losing against Reggina. And that's what made me angry, essentially. And well, the one last thing about the match against Reggina, and again, their goal comes from an X. Damn it. I mean, okay, it was on a penalty, but still, Hernani. So what happened on match day 12, Matt? So we started with Benevento Bari. Bari starting to come back up a little bit, not too much because it has lost a lot of ground. And they tie 1-1 against Benevento. Benevento is another team that we were expecting to do this great. And look at them, 17th spot.
Benevento are the cautionary tale for sure. But I mean, Bari's only 2 points behind us now, even with they've dropped.
They've lost 2 and draw 2, but they were up there, right?
Yes, they're actually above us in the table. So they're sitting 2 points behind us now, but that's also having dropped what is that? 10 points in the last 4 matches.
Yeah, so, essentially 3, 6, and 2, 2. Yeah, 10 points. Essentially, they lost 10 points. I'm not going to talk about Frosinone yet, but we're still all tight there. Like if you count from Reggina all the way down again to, I don't know, even 15th spot, we're still within 9, 8 points. So it just takes 2 seconds to drop and it takes 2 seconds to go up.
Yep.
There's a little bit of an issue from my perspective on the first spot, but we'll talk about that also in a second.
Yep.
So the next match came up was Brescia Ascoli. That was another match that was, I had good expectations from it. Ascoli is this question mark. They're in a 7th spot though. They come from a nice form as well. They came from 3 wins and this one was a tie against Brescia. Brescia, we just saw them and their form is a little bit iffy. Obviously, they had to put all their guns and whistles against us, but in the last 5 matches, they only gathered 4 points. And this one being the last one of the 4 points. Then we had Cittadella Modena. That's another disappointing team for Cittadella, which we were used to see them always in the runner-up for the playoffs. And now we're seeing them sitting mid-low table. They gained a little bit of points after the win a couple of matches ago, but their form, they basically gathered 4 ties and 1 win. So this was a win against Modena. Modena is another one which came like as a little surprise at the beginning of the season, and now it's dropping points like crazy and down at the 15th spot. Mm-hmm. And these are like 3 ties, one after the other one. Then you get Pisa Cosenza. Our friends from Cosenza, I don't know what's happening. I was talking even to Raffaello, and he's speechless. He doesn't know what to say. Essentially says, like, thank God we got all those points at the beginning because this is not looking good at all. And this was the fear that they had from the beginning because they knew they didn't have good players. And so they're 3rd last spot and they have lost all of the last 5 matches.
They've been many of them, I think, have been kind of lopsided losses too. Their differential, I think, is one of the worst in the league. They've let in the most goals joint with Como, actually, 21 goals allowed, and only 11 scored. So I know, I think we have to feel for our Rosso Blue cousins or brothers. It looks like they're in a bad way right now. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Hopefully they can dig into getting some I don't know, like either loans or some free agents or whatnot, mm-hmm. whatever they can do to reinforce a little bit their team. They changed the coach as well, but we'll see. But good for Pisa. Pisa is gaining momentum. They're having 2 wins and 3 ties in the last 5, being the last one here now is a win with a nice and clear 3-1 against Cosenza. Südtirol, our great Cinderella of Serie B, continuing to make points, and that's all what it matters. It's a tie, so they tied against Cagliari. So it's not that they tied against the last of the league, and they were at home in Bolzano, but still, they're still sitting at 9th spot, 19 points, which is only like 3 points away from us, right?
I know. Well, that's sort of the craziness of this league is that they're not very far at all, honestly. And kudos to them. I mean, what a another run. They've not had exactly like a cakewalk of a schedule too, and they've not also lost in at least their last 5. So good on Südtirol, everybody's favorite Serie B team.
Exactly. And then after that one, we have another stalemate, Ternana Spal. So the Ternana that we saw long ago is starting to lose a little bit of points.
Thankfully.
Thankfully, exactly. 2 ties in a row. And this is their last tie against Spal, 0-0.
Mm-hmm.
They're sitting on the 4th spot still, 1 point behind us. And Spal, where are they? Mid-table, 11th spot at 15. Then we have, I'm going to skip this one, which is the Frosinone match, but we have Palermo-Parma. That was another great match to watch. It was a tough one. Palermo at the end pulled it out, a 1-0, which gives them a little bit of more of a breather and brings them a little bit towards the mid-table at 13th spot, now with 2 wins in a row. Good for them. While Parma, again, I have to say, again, for our friends that we had on our pod as well, but they're losing points. They get these great wins and then they lose. And it's just like, why? You were supposed to be like almost like, if not like Cagliari, but at par with Cagliari, above, just below Genoa, to be the top 3-ish of the killers of the league and whatnot. And it's not happening.
No, it's bizarre.
It's very bizarre. Very, very, very bizarre. And the second last one is Como Venezia. Como starting to get all these points. Again, a little bit of a yo-yo, similarly to Parma. But they actually had a win against, oh my God, this biggest disappointment of the league, which is Venezia. So Como wins 1-0, which is our next opponent. And Venezia, I don't know, really. I don't know what's happening. So they are really risking right now to be relegated, being second last at 9 points. Cosenza and Benevento at 11, and Perugia at 7, but to be relegated. And last but not least, I put it for last just because they're the first in the league right now. It's Frosinone. They had a very brief win. I don't know how to call it, like a spook, because if you watch the game, they did not deserve to win. It was an honest game that should have ended in a tie, but Perugia is struggling big time, and they lucked out because the stats were not like what you think. The stats were essentially 3 shots to 2 on target, and that's it.
Crazy.
So it's not that was like that crazy match that was like you would think on the stats looking at it was a little bit stronger, but ultimately they didn't do that much.
Yeah.
And that's the part that a little bit upsets me as well. Again, not necessarily Reggina's fault, but now we're at 5 points to the first. So that leads us to the next match, which is Genoa Como in the Field of Potato pitch in Genova against Como. Como not doing that bad, not great, but not doing that bad. But we need that change, Matt.
We must get a result here. I think this is a match where if we do not get a good performance from Genoa at home, this is the one. I think there's been the conversations we've had a couple of times, like, do we start to see the Ferraris turn a little bit on the team? It could definitely happen in this match. I think that we will be able to find a way. I think it's going to be an interesting one, especially given they adjusted beaten Venezia, who, to your point, are literally 19th right now and are on a horrible run of form.
Yeah,
they actually have a pretty talented squad. Venezia do. I think maybe they're also imbalanced in that they're too attacking in the way that their team is set up, and they've also had some changes. This is a cautionary tale for the advocation of removing a manager, having seen that already happen pretty quickly on their side. I think this season too. So, I don't know all that much about Como. I know, former Arsenal player says Fabregas in the lineup. Although I don't think he's been playing all that much.
Partially owner too.
And is he a part owner?
Yeah.
I didn't know that part. I know that's right. So there's also like a strange like Chelsea connection with Dennis Wise, an old Chelsea player, and I think that was what had brought in Fabregas to kind of be part of the team. I forgot about the ownership element of it too. I think. Is there anything else you want to talk about the match, or do you want to go straight into predictions?
What can I say? No, there's not much I can say. I don't really know much myself either. I know what they have been doing so far, which is a yo-yo. I'm hoping it's more on the lower side. I guess this is part of the conversation that we can do towards the predictions. But actually, before we go with the predictions, I always like that to have that as a last thing. But quickly, just wanted to mention the next games are coming up, which some can be interesting and some not. So we're going to have Ternana Brescia. That's another interesting mid-top table clash. Venezia Reggina. So I'm hoping for the miracle for Venezia to do something. Sorry, Reggina, but Spal Benevento. That's your mid-low table match type of thing. Parma Cittadella, so it's going to be an interesting match both for Parma and Cittadella to try to hang in there with the points that they're trying to make. Modena Perugia, I don't know what to have. That's like a low table type of match. Perugia just needs points, and Modena just needs not to drop any more points. Cosenza Palermo, that's going to be a tough one for our friends at Cosenza. They need points. Absolutely. Palermo seems to be on the rise. We just have to see. Big match, Cagliari Pisa. Pisa on the rise. Cagliari, it's that question mark. Sometimes they do amazing. Sometimes they do. And then another big match, just because our Cinderella has become like a big team now. It's going to be Bari Südtirol in Bari.
That's a big one.
That's good. It's essentially a big one because if you think about where Südtirol is, so you're essentially looking at
like a playoff position type of a role.
Absolutely. 9th spot versus 5th spot. So, and they're only 1 point differential. And last but not least, and this is the one, again, I'm leaving it to last because it's the sweet cherry on top, obviously except a Genoa Como, is Ascoli Frosinone. So I'm hoping, I'm not a big fan of Ascoli, but definitely this is the moment where Ascoli needs to pull up their sleeves. They're at 19 points themselves too. So it's not that they're that low either, right? But there needs to be someone that needs to start to stop this Frosinone, which are in a streak that is incredible. And I'm hoping.
Well, Ascoli will be an interesting one too, because I think they also have some pretty good players in defense, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, their differential isn't maybe as interesting if you look at like just purely from goals scored and allowed. But I think this will actually be like a really, really good game. It probably may not be the most high scoring one, but it should be one to pay attention to if you can see it.
Absolutely. Predictions.
So you mentioned we've not won very many games 2-0. I don't think this will be a game where we do win 2-0. I do think we'll win. I think it'll be 1-0. I do think Coda will be the goal scorer, as I predicted, I think, fairly regularly, but I believe he will. And I don't think it's going to be convincing in that we are changing our way and we've really found the right identity, but I do think we're going to get the result we need. So
1-0 Coda. Okay. For me, I'm looking at the last 3 matches of Como. I'm seeing a 1-0 win against Venezia, 1-0 loss against Parma. I'm seeing a win against Benevento. So I do see that they're a valid team, not definitely your top there, but again, they're going to come to Ferraris and they're going to just show off like to be the champions, the Real Madrid of the situation. But I'm going to say this differently from Reggina, which I was trying to be very, very optimistic. And unfortunately, it didn't work out. This time around, I'm saying that we are going to make that change. I think this is going to shake the players. It's going to be at least 2-0. I don't think it's going to go way beyond that. I do agree with you. We're going to have Coda for sure. as one goal scorer, and the other one can be either a doppietta again by Coda, or maybe we're going to have Yeboah.
Yeboah, that's interesting. I mean, it would be nice to see someone off of the bench get involved. If it's Yeboah or Puskas or someone else, I think it'd be good to see a little bit of like, some confidence building happening there. It is funny you say that though, because I felt weirdly optimistic as well ahead of Reggina. I thought that we were going to have a good match. I'm pretty pessimistic about this game. I think we have the quality to get through it and to win, and I do think we will. I am not convinced that we are going to find the right, creative solution or team setup or game plan that will really make us feel like we've found, all right, we've got a chance. I think it's going to kind of feel like we've got the win, but let's look at this next match and can we get it? So I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. I don't want it. I would much rather this be a great sign of things to come than seem like a little bit of a red herring or something like that.
We should do predictions, statistics on how many times I was right, how many times you caught.
I know I've had one scoreline that I had on the dot, and then I feel like I had to like completely flub it the last time we had a game prediction thing, just so I didn't throw everything off. But we'll see.
Anyways,
I did predict at least Reggina would score 2 goals in the last match. I thought it was going to be.
Did you? You did, damn you.
Yeah, so it's my fault.
No, it's not. Of course
I thought that we would score at least 2 also, but.
So this is a wrap. Thank you everyone for listening us again on our 24th episode.
Yeah.
This is La Lanterna podcast. Please do comment, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and give us comments, feedback, whatnot. And we'll always love to hear from you. We shall be talking to you next week after our match of Como, and looking forward to the first break. I'm sorry. It's not the first break, but the break for the national teams before the World Cup coming up.
That's right. Can't believe that's here. That's crazy.
And once again,
right here,
always and only Forza Genoa.
Forza Genoa.
You've listened to La Lanterna, a spotlight on Italian football, a podcast powered by Genuani Si Resta. Thank you for listening and see you next week.